Hello there, character animation class. Emily here, and I just had a really quick lecture for you today. I shouldn't say quick, it's not that it's going to be fast, it's just going to be on the shorter side since the last one was an hour. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about two behaviors, one of just swapping layers and another of the full body tracking feature, which was just released as a in-program feature this week in Character Animator. It was a beta feature that I talked about before, but now it's actually just part of the program. And all that it really takes to use it is what we learned when we talked about rigging a puppet for walking. So let's talk just a little bit about that. I have three puppets here that demonstrate the character animation's body tracking behavior, and I love that one of them is this older man. Right now he doesn't actually have the body track icon on, but you can see that there's this little stick figure icon right between the camera input and the microphone input up in that panel. And that just means that you're arming the body tracking, just like whether you're arming the recording of the camera or the microphone. And so I have all the regular features right now, it's listening, but if I turn on the body tracking input, you can see his posture changed right away. But it adds tracking data along my shoulders, and it actually will look for my arms. And if I were to stand, it would actually look for my spine, my legs, and my feet as well. And what it's going to do is it's going to map those features to those same features on the puppet. And all you have to do to get this is to name it that and then turn body tracking on. It's pretty crazy considering just a few years ago this was something that we wouldn't be able to do just in our homes or cubicles, but now it's just a regular feature in Character Animator. Oh, and he looks all bashful about it. Of course, there's different things that we can program for performances as well. This young man already has a walk cycle that somebody added the triggers of A and D for. So if I hit A or D on the keyboard, it triggers his walk cycle, and he goes for a lovely little stroll. And if I have his microphone and other camera inputs on, I can have him doing all of this animation at once, listening to me talking, walking, and it looks like he's like creepily pointed at somebody, but maybe that's Now, something about body tracking that you would know from compositing, if you took that class with me before, or just in general. Generally, it's going to work better if there's no distraction between what it's tracking in the background. I have all of my albums and action figures back here. I'm wearing black, huge surprise. So it has a hard time tracking my limbs. If I was against a solid background, it would do a much better job. And next week, when I show you the full body tracking, I'm probably going to have to move out in the hallway because I am just too tall for my Max camera to really get at a right angle. The way the controls and other things were set up were of course in the rig mode, just like with any other puppet. So if I go to the rig mode for this guy, you could see he has the head tag, the right legs, the left legs. With the legs, if we just take a look at the anatomy here, we have the hip, the knee, the ankle, we have our sticks here, and then of course we have all of the other bits as well. But just notice that things like the arms and the legs all have the appropriate tags on them. Toes are especially important when walking, which you would know if you've ever broken any of yours. So when you click on one of these, you should see the appropriate little icon highlight on the little stick figure that designates that. And so that's how you know you have everything appropriately tagged and named, so that when you add a walk behavior, it will work appropriately. So just a few other puppets like this. If I go back to my record mode here, I grabbed a few of the other puppets that also work within this mode. I also have Hopscotch, and Hopscotch is also becoming kind of the spokes frog of these new features, just because he has so many. But he also has the arm tracking. If I really scoot back, oh, he's like kind of doing this. Trying to get his arm to go up that way. Now you can limit these. Kind of has like a little dance going on. I'm not actually able to do a dance that smooth, so my puppet has already exceeded my performance abilities. But you can see there's this body behavior drop down, and we can choose whether the object holds in place or returns to rest. So in this situation, we might want return to rest. So we have body and dragger. These are both totally applicable ways of moving a puppet. It really just depends on how physically invested you want to be. The body tag is awesome just because it does track all of those limbs at once. It doesn't have to be a full body. You could just use it for the arms and things, like if you would like a newscaster or just somebody, like an explainer video or somebody talking about something, you could just have kind of a talking head kind of thing. But the body tag just gives you a few of these different controls, and then you also have which handles are being tracked. But basically you can apply these body tracking tags to anything. You just need to add the body tag. And then you also have these different perform features. And now tracking is great, and it allows you to, do hand gestures and things like that. Let me try this way, since there's a white wall this way. So it's a little better. So my hand is kind of stuck in this position with the frog, but if you look to the left, we have all of these different hand gestures, different layers. And so if I click these different icons, I can bring up different hands. And so the combination of that, so if I click Q, I swap hands here, so I'd be able to get a lot more movement and a lot more gesture by swapping those hands out. And so it gives you a lot of control, and then it even lets you do things like trigger a jump off the screen. Now, that's good because I don't think most people recording this would be able to do that. So it's probably good to animate the frog doing that instead. Or if like the frog's tongue came out, another thing most people probably wouldn't be able to do. So probably something to animate for the frog. So you can kind of fill in gaps performance-wise by swapping these layers and having animation that you trigger, like that older man's walk cycles. So if you had a character that you wanted to swap things out on, that's when you would create a trigger. And just like with anything else in Character Animator, you have to have the layer for it first. So you could see there's a few different left-hand layers here that all have a different position. And all of these lead to kind of different gesture. Oh, he's holding his own hand. All these lead to different gesture and just expression, and will really add a lot to this puppet since we're not going to get the fine finger movement, at least yet. I can see that happening in just a few years now if we're moving at this pace. But if we have things that we want to add like this, it's just as easy as adding a trigger within the column for that layer in the rig mode. So you don't really need to do anything but make the artwork for it. And then in that artwork, you just have to go into the trigger column in Character Animator and click in that column. You can see there's a little plus sign that says create a trigger or swap set. And then that allows you to click, create trigger or swap set. So you could swap if you wanted him to have like a pink tutu and pink bandana, like it was a different set of clothing or something, you could create a different, like a clothing sweat. You could create, well, sure, you could create sweat clothes, but you could create a clothing set that you could swap out. Swap out. I said swat because of our frog friend here and flies, I swear. So we can create a trigger or swap set, which would be switching things out like for clothing. But create trigger, it really is just going to have us type in what we want that trigger to be. So you can see there's a trigger column down below, and then there's just the place to type in what you want for that keyboard shortcut. So I don't even know what I applied this to, so I'm going to undo that. But let's actually add something to this puppet. We're going to edit this puppet just like we did with Breaking Chad, and we could do with really any character in Character Animator. I'm going to right-click and reveal in Finder. And there's my Hopscotch PSD. I'm just going to double-click on that to open it in Photoshop. I wasn't sure if it was a Photoshop or Illustrator file. And I'll just do a quick example here. Since I mentioned swapping out his bandana, and actually let me see if he has multicolored bandanas yet. Nope. We're going to give him some fashion choices. Ooh, and I haven't launched Photoshop 2022 yet. So in the layers panel here, I'm going to find where I want to create my layer. So I'm going to duplicate the bandana here. And with this duplicate, change the color. Let's just save him for now. And if I go back into Character Animator, that should update our artwork. Okay, so I'm going to turn the blue bandana off, but then I'm going to add a trigger for it. So I'm going to click in that last column, the trigger column, in that layer. Probably should have named it better, but it's the one I don't have visible right now. Going to create a trigger, and I don't see B as taken yet for one of the triggers. Oh, my bad, it's actually taken for blink. So what's another thing we can do? I'm going to do N for bandana. Which is horrible, but it will work. So I'm going to go back to the record mode. And he's doing his thing, and then if I click N, I can swap that out with a different trigger. So Hopscotch has a lot of these really great gestures and triggers and things like that. Another puppet that does maybe the most is Sam right now, just because she has a whole bunch. If I go to Rig, I know I have her puppet already, I just don't have her in a scene yet. Oh, I guess I do, but I haven't done anything. But Sam has all kinds of features. She has a walk, even though it looks like Sam is nursing a broken foot there. I'm not sure what's going on. And she doesn't look very happy. She appropriately does not look that happy about the way her foot is dragging. But, you know, fair enough. But if you look at this Triggers tab here, she can actually fly, which is pretty awesome. And then she has her walking. And then she has a whole bunch of hand triggers. Oh, and you know, she does have different shoes. And there should just be switching with her, the angle she's at. But for some reason it doesn't seem to be. But then a lot of times people do tend to have the handles for dragging also be the body trackers. They don't cancel each other out. So if we were to look at the rig mode with this puppet, if I look at one of her arms and we just kind of look over the anatomy of it, you could see that this handle in the hand is marked as the hand. It's also marked as draggable. So if you were to click on these individual points, you would see that appropriate one light up on the puppet. But then those are also the things that the body tracker are looking for. These last three puppets are ones that are already geared towards the full body tracking, but really any character can be. They just have to have those appropriate handles first. And then it helps if they're in some kind of setup or, facing the camera in a way that makes sense, or at least, is what you're looking for. If I were to go to a puppet that does not have body tracking, I'm looking at other examples here, and Tull the cat, rather than just having individual triggers, he actually has these whole facial sets that switch out, but they definitely add a lot of character to him, and I could see how they would really add to a narrative. So again, just the rig mode. Those are just layers that are basically being triggered, but those ones are also frame animation, which is actually what we're doing not next week, but the week after. So if you want to create like a cycle animation, you just have to make the artwork for each frame, and then this behavior is basically playing those frames when that thing is triggered, which is one of the reasons that it just kind of has more of a something to it, just because it has that animation. Just the little wiggling eyes and like the quivering lip and stuff like that. It definitely helps. His arms. Okay. Oh, now he's like, I don't know what they did with the tuna. I was trying to find a puppet that doesn't have body tracking, but because this is the newest character animator, I feel like they just added it to everything. Does Dr. Applesmith have it? I only want somebody that doesn't have it so I can show you how to add it. Alright, he's got those individual face swaps, which is nice. He's an older puppet. He should not have body tracking. Alright, you are creating a puppet from scratch, or character in general, or you're working with the character that doesn't have the body tracking, or you want to add it. It's not too crazy. You do need to go in and make sure that all of these different parts are tagged. So that would be the first thing to do, is making sure that you've got the shoulder, the elbow, and the wrist. Oops, and I added one rather than clicking on it. So we have those three things, and I'm just talking about tracking my arm right now. Obviously, if we were doing a full body track, we would want to make sure that like hips, knees, and ankles are tagged as well. And for walking, you really got to have the toes and heels tagged. So if you want to do full body tracking, you have to have the newest character animator or the beta. You want to add those handles just like you would if you were going to add a walking component. So if you wanted to add the body tracking behavior to a puppet, you would just have to click on the puppet's top layer, like we did for walk. Click within that category right next to trigger that says add behavior. And then you have all these lovely things in here. Walk is what we covered recently. Triggers are usually in there already since, well, this one has triggers in this puppet already, but That's what we're adding in this column. We actually want to add the second one, which is the body tag. Sounds pretty morbid, but if we add the body tag to this puppet, so I'm adding it at this top puppet level. If everything else is tagged, I actually don't need to do anything else. I could just go back into record mode. To get this to work, I would just want to make sure that the body tracker input is on, filled in with blue, just like with my camera and microphone if I was recording those. And now when it sees my arm, it should track that arm. This one should track too, just because it has the tracker data in it. And so like, not enough room to dance, but you do have those arms and you can wave them around, and then, you know, if you wanted to do the full legs, you can as well. But if you add that body twirl down, then that gives you the options of what's being, oh, that's actually the head turner, my bad. And then this body drop down that's added when you add that behavior, that's when you can choose whether the tracking's held in place or returned, what the strength of the tracking is, and then which handles are tracked. So you have quite a few options in here, but it's just another thing you can do to add realism or just more performance capture to your characters. Not required for anything. I just thought it'd be fun to play with, especially because now you already have the skill set you need in order to try this. But to be fair, a lot of the puppets already have it built in. I just wanted to talk about how you can add it to one of your own design. And it's just like adding the walk cycle behavior. It's actually really no different. If anything, it's more fun just because you're doing it versus it's awkward back and forth, though you can usually get it to look pretty good if you work on it for a while. So nothing too crazy today. You don't need to add the body tracking or even a trigger to your walk cycle exercise. I just wanted you to get that down, especially working with a full body puppet. We're actually going to change gears quite a bit in the upcoming weeks. We'll talk about cycle layers and full body tracking next week, but then we're actually going to be talking about model sheets a little bit, designing a character, what takes a good character, or, you know, what makes a good character, I guess what takes one too, and talking about silhouettes a little bit with drawing. You don't need to really draw too much, but your final, which it's already week 10 somehow, we're still 6 weeks from the end, but I do want people to start thinking about what kind of character will you want to make for this class. You're not going to be judged on your drawing ability or anything like that, but just the ability to visualize and create a character that has some kind of movement. I'm not looking for a Saturday morning cartoon. This is really just more to learn than anything. Also, I forgot that Dr. Applesmith has maybe the worst trigger ever. He has a mouse. 7 is a mouse, but then 8 is a kicking mouse. It's a little, maybe a gerbil. And that's just 2 cycles. That's just 2 layers that are going back and forth, but it just looks kind of disturbing. So you can add a lot of realism or just further performance with your characters by adding these triggers, but then also by adding body tracking now. So Al and I have to mosey off here to a park bench over that way. I guess I should really be pointing if I'm talking about that. Oh, God. See, but I can't get my whole hand on there, and that just looks terrifying. Never mind. Oh, poor Al. I'm just gonna... Is he actually called Al? I did not notice that until now. I already thought he kind of looked like Al Roker, but I guess he kind of is. Let's return that to place. Return to place, but not... Oh, that's interesting. It was dragged and camera moved. So I hope you enjoy playing with these new features and moonwalking to a park bench with this guy, don't need to use this for your walk cycle exercise. I just thought it would be fun. Just something exciting that Character Animator is working with, and something I am looking forward to adding to future projects. So let me know if you have any questions, and I will talk to you later.